I am just so impressed at this point by the relentless nature of Arsenal's hierarchy, executive figures, and in particular, of course, Andrea Berta, just renewing contract after contract after contract. It is something quite special. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Join you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and indeed making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated and I hope you've had a fantastic week. Welcome to Friday. And what a Friday. Hopefully it is going to be. Mikel Arteta's press conference a little bit later on today. Some good news to kick off or rather end the week. It's a big day for those in the gaming world. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm going to see if anyone can work it out why it's a big day in the gaming world and let the nerds return with me to seeing if they can work out why. But good morning to everybody joining us live and those listening, of course, on catch-up as well. I want to send you in the direction, of course, of yesterday evening's show. If you haven't yet caught up on my chat with Jordan Jarrett Bryan, I recommend that you do. It was a really interesting conversation. We don't agree on a few things, and I think we probably showed the best example of how two people can disagree and yet have a really good conversation about that. So go and check that out if you haven't done so already. He even talks about AFTV. He did it. He talked about it. There's no juicy stuff really, but he did talk about it. But, it's just the what's it called? The YouTuber in me being like, oh, drama. It's drama. Oh, it's so exciting. Good morning to you all, though. Thank you so much for joining us. Those live in the chat box. Good morning to Martin and Adagoke. Good morning to Blackshine and Knowledge, to Matt G, to Tom, to Rich, to Steve. Good morning to Paul, to Jamil. Good morning to Tom. Good morning to Carl, Martin and Southport. Good night. Good morning to Brad. We've got John LaRoche in the chat as well. Maybe it's John LaRoche. Rather than a Roche. I need to ask Art if I say Roche or Roche. I think it's up the Roche. I have a weird feeling that it is. Carrie Ann, good morning to you. To SS, to Runzo Cows, to Abdul Hakim, good morning. Thank you so much, all of you, for listening. Greatly appreciate you all being here and tuning in as always. Let's jump, shall we, into today's stories. If you haven't dropped a like on the video already, please make sure you do. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's start with last night's European action, because although I don't usually cover the Europa League and the UEFA Conference League, because frankly, but in terms of those competitions, there is some relevance to Arsenal. There isn't relevance to Arsenal at the moment yet for Aston Villa, but they were beaten by Go Ahead Eagles, or as they're now being called, Go Behind Eagles. In the case of Aston Villa. That's not my joke. I saw it on X yesterday. I'm not taking credit for it. I just thought it was very funny. So I want to repeat it. But Aston Villa being beaten by the Dutch sides in quite a shock. And then perhaps even a bigger shock was Arsenal's opponents for this weekend on Sunday. They take on Crystal Palace, who have just been beaten by Cypriot side Larnaca at Selhurst Park. What a result for Larnaca and what a defeat. For Crystal Palace, it's worth pointing out that there are only 6 games in the UEFA Conference League phase, so there is more of a jeopardy when you drop points in that league phase. So certainly this is a big result for both teams, and in particular Palace, who, you know, there's no excuse for Palace not winning this competition. Zero excuse. Crystal Palace should win the Conference League. And if you need to understand why, go and look at the squad value of Crystal Palace against any other team in the competition. It is night and day. There is no excuses for Crystal Palace to win that competition. Equally, I think they had the second highest squad value when they were initially meant to be going into the Europa League. There is no excuse for Crystal Palace not to win this competition. So if they don't win it, I mean, people going, bring Oliver Glasner to Arsenal. Oh, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious me. Anyway, Max Dowman, big news. Max Dowman has indeed agreed scholarship terms with Arsenal, and that is set to be made official at the start of next season. All members of the Arsenal hierarchy, Andrea Berta, Richard Garlick, James King, and of course, Mikel Arteta, heavily involved in the process to which Max Dowman has committed his future to the club. It is certainly a huge, huge success on the club's part to have developed a player of his talent, and massive credit to Max as well. Player of his talent, you need to harness that talent. You need to keep yourself grounded, especially when you are in a position whereby you are reaching incredible heights at an incredibly young age and keeping your feet on the ground. Arsenal, Per Mertesacker deserves huge credit as head of the academy, of course, as well. And Arsenal overall have done a brilliant job in bringing through such an exciting, talented young player. But Andrea Berta adding another player to the list of those who have signed brand new contracts at the club. And it is very, very impressive indeed that they find themselves in this position. So Max Dowman signing new terms with the club, scholarship terms. And there is an expectation, by the way, that he will sign that professional contract when he turns 17 as well. That is the sense, that is the feeling, that is the understanding, that there is confidence that he will be committing his future to the club, that other clubs, as always with young players, because the rules are slightly different around younger players, have been very interested. Why wouldn't they be? He's arguably the most talented player of his generation, but he only wants Arsenal. Those behind him only want Arsenal, and they want to see success with the club that currently look the most dangerous, formidable side in the Premier League. So who could blame him? Who could blame them? Who could blame us for indeed whatever the offer is going to be? There's no real details about kind of the offers that are involved in yet, but I don't think there's any surprise about the potential financial capacity of what Max Dowman is going to be earning in a very short period of time. Anyway, it is Friday, which means it is press conference day. I'll be attending at the Shobber Realty Training Centre a little bit later on this morning to hear from the Arsenal manager. In terms of topics up for discussion, I think you can all probably understand that with it being Crystal Palace this weekend, that Eberechi Eze is going to take probably quite a big focus in this press conference. There's going to be a lot of focus on him facing his former club for the first time, and his former side that lost last night. How that might be factoring in to Mikel Arteta's mind. The fact that Crystal Palace have 2 days less recovery than them, playing on that Thursday, then playing on the Sunday. You might remember Bernardo Silva's comments that he made after Arsenal played City, after they'd played on Thursday in the Champions League. Was not very happy at all. Then they have to come to the Emirates, just 3 days later. But Mikel Arteta will be speaking to the press, and we'll be asking him questions around the game and, of course, around more. But we're going to go to part 2 now and get some of your questions in the chat box right after this. Just before I do take your questions, I do for one final time want to push you in the direction of this event that is going on tonight at the Iris Centre in Camden Square, London. Nigel Winterburn, Martin Keogh, and Paul Davis and Perry Groves all in attendance in support of the Kevin Campbell Foundation. It is an evening of Arsenal for those interested who are able to go in the local area. You can get your tickets by scanning the QR code or going to the Kevin Campbell Foundation website and getting tickets there. But go and get involved if you've got a free evening tonight and you fancy some Arsenal legends in front of your own very own eyes. Go and check it out. But yes, last chance to get your tickets if there are indeed any left. Go and grab them ASAP. Right, let's jump into the chat, shall we, and take up some of your questions for this weekend's action, of course, the press conference and other topics as well. Alfie says, Tom, did you meet Ollie Thomas representing Palace Media at the Emirates on Tuesday? I didn't. I didn't know he was there until it was too late. And I've got a lot of time for Ollie Thomas. I think he produces some really strong content. So, and I have reached out to him in the past and said that I think you produce some excellent grounded work. So I was when I found out I thought it was one of those moments where like you spot someone and you're like, is that who I think it is? And if I had have realised really who it was, I probably would have gone up and said hello. But it's one of those where you're like, if I'm wrong, it's really embarrassing. So I didn't. But yeah, you're right, Alfie, to bring Ollie up because he does produce some really grounded and reasoned work, which is rare in these spaces these days. Steve says, I've said before, Berta needs to chain Dowman up in his office for 18 months and not release him. I mean, he's a child, Steve. Come on. I know where you're coming from, but my goodness, it's a bit extreme. Brendan says, TC, you got any more questions for the presser like last week? He found the left foot question funny. He did find that funny, didn't he? That how, if you pitted the left-footed players against the right-footed players who would win. And obviously, as you should have recognised, the question was never designed to get an answer about that. It was obviously designed to be more about what the balance and the depth that is in the squad, and he certainly lent into that with his answer. But certainly, Brendan, I've got my thinking cap on. I'm not finalised yet. I had those questions in mind well ahead of the press. Sometimes I know what I'm going to ask. Sometimes I kind of just listen to some of the answers that he gets from other questions and form a question based off that. I did that in the one before the Atletico Madrid game, particularly the one about, what was it, the Liverpool game. Was kind of off the top of my head in that moment. So it changes depending upon the scenario. Jack says, if we were to win the Premier League, where do you think we would have to invest given the squad depth that we have already? Left-hand side, I think you're going to see perhaps a change. Martinelli, Trossard, one of them could go next summer. And I think a midfielder as well. Marino's not getting any younger. So I think potentially a box-to-box midfielder wouldn't be a terrible investment in the squad as well. We have to see who leaves. If anybody leaves, someone could decide to go. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Just because you renew players' futures doesn't mean that you won't then renew them so you can guarantee a big sale, if indeed that you get a big sale. Tom says, Tom, isn't it interesting that all those people that said Unai is better than Arteta have gone very quiet? They went very quiet a long time ago, Tom. And the reason is because he's not. He's achieved more in his career, certainly so far to this point. But for me now, Arteta has certainly eclipsed him in terms of his coaching ability. No doubt about that for me. Tipsy says, love that his dad is the one looking out for Max's best interests. Always people looking to leech off talent like that. You'd hope that family wouldn't. I know that I'm sure there are cases that people could bring up as examples where they have, but you would hope in cases like that they wouldn't. And it seems like he's got a really good group of people behind him, and Arteta's been very complimentary of Max's family as well. Delakeem says, do scholarship players get paid? Yes, they do. I mean, he does have a wage now, as far as I'm aware, but obviously that wage, I imagine, will increase under scholarship terms. But I think there are certain parameters around scholarship contracts that restrict how much you can earn. But there could be prior agreements. I don't know. He's absolutely no idea of knowing any of the details really about a player of that age, because there's child protection laws in place, of course, as well. Lead Aguna says, does the club provide catering hospitality in the press conference? Yes, they do. They provide it. I mean, it's more of a thing of just looking after everybody that's in attendance. I assume it's just the same money, the same food that's served to hospitality, I guess. I don't know if it's specific, but they have changed the way in which they serve food now at the Emirates for press. It used to be like you'd have your main and your dessert before the game, and then you'd have like a pie at halftime. Now it's you have your main before the game and now dessert at halftime, which I appreciate as someone who's tried to calorie cut, because it means you're not having 2 meals in one day, you're just having one. So they have changed that up this season. Let's scroll down a little bit. John says, what is the academy's aim? Like with Barca, to make players in our mould, or like Real, to perhaps sell competent footballers? I think a mix, but all coach. It's always going to be a holistic thing, isn't it? It's going to be looking at all potential benefits of developing a player, whether it's to sell them later on down the line, whether it's to integrate them into the squad. That's the primary. They all want to produce players that they can use, the players that can play for Arsenal. That's the primary, but also to produce players that if they don't, that obviously kind of pay back the investment that we have put in them with a transfer fee later on down the line. So Nicholas says, Tom, are the weekend games press conferences always on a Friday, even if the game is on a Sunday? Yes. I've never known a presser on a Saturday during my short time in the biz, so yes. Elliot says, Tom, I missed the call-in show again. You've got to give me advice. I hardly ever decide it in advance. I usually do it pretty spontaneously, Elliot. So apologies. AG says, Tom, how much do you think of Palace's defeat against Larnaca will benefit us? I mean, mentally, you could argue that there is a benefit. You could argue that them losing that game is going to help Arsenal in some way, shape, or form. I hope that it does. And obviously, it's more about the fact that they've had 2 days less recovery than Arsenal. I think that's the one. So Nick says, Tom, you should ask Arteta waffles or pancakes. Oh, I think that might be the end of my journalistic career if I did that, Nick. But I appreciate the suggestion, always. Aoife says, not a question, but while Palace definitely have the quality to win the Conference League, we ignore the implicit knowledge needed to be able to manage a European and domestic campaign, for sure. But equally, they have more depth, more quality, more strength than any other side in that competition. So, again, no excuses for me in terms of that competition. It's the same as I said with Arsenal. Arsenal had no excuses to not win at least one Europa League during the years they were in it. Frankly, the fact that we didn't win the Europa League in any of the years that we were in it is a failure. There's no doubt about that. 100% that was a failure. Kingley says, Tom, do you think Palace are playing yesterday with almost their entire first team as a plus? Yes, absolutely. Iama says, Tom, what do you think could be Arsenal's biggest reason for not winning the league or the Champions League? The biggest reason if we don't win it will be obviously our rivals, how good they are. That'll be the number one reason. Second would be, it would have to be some kind of crisis, I think, like an injury crisis, because I think we've got a great chance of winning the league this season. John says, if you could go back in time, would you have not built the Emirates and maybe won 2 more Premier Leagues in the Champions League, or would the longer term viability of the Emirates be more important? I think we would have got worse if we would have stayed at Highbury. I think that the lack of revenue, the lack of competitiveness would have restricted us as football evolved, as other teams earned more money, as other teams grew. I think that it's really easy to kind of go, oh, we shouldn't have moved and we maybe would have won other things, but we wouldn't have won other things necessarily. There isn't a guarantee or even a far greater chance that we would have won more because we wouldn't have been able to spend slightly more. We wouldn't have been able to spend the same as what City and Chelsea did during those years, unrestricted, because we didn't have the same type of ownership model at that point. So no, we wouldn't have been able to do that. Baz says, hi Tom, what's your opinion on Arsenal releasing the 1992 home shirt? Are you a fan of the re-releases, or do you think it lowers the value of the originals? No, it doesn't lower the value of the originals, because they will always be the originals. You will always have an original. A re-release of those shirts as they are now with the modern manufacturing, they're copies. They are replicas. They will never be. If anything, you could argue that it makes the originals more valuable, because finding an original one as opposed to a re-released version is so much more special now that there is more replicas out there these days. So without a doubt, I have no issue with it. And it allows, younger fans who love the designs of those shirts to get their hands on them before they never would have been able to, just for the design, But there's so many fake shirts out there these days that, I like the fact that the club and Adidas have collaborated to get a good quality replica of old shirts. So I absolutely get on board with it. I haven't bought it yet. I'm tempted to, very tempted to, but I haven't bought it yet. Arthur says, is the notion that the team plays a low block against us, or is it a slow build up? No, it's the low block from the opposition. Luke says, Tom, it's my first live show in 7 months, as I've been working on a cruise ship. Watching on catch up is great, but it's good to be back in the chat. Hope you're doing well, brother, and all the best. Thank you, Luke. And I hope you had a fantastic time on a cruise ship for 7 months. How is it being back on dry land? Does it feel like, I'm sure you've been asked this question all the time, but I don't know if I could do that. Constant swaying, 7 months. It'd drive me mad. Barry says, Tom, what do you think the score will be on Sunday? Well, you have to tune in on Sunday, Barry. He thinks it'll be 3-0 to my Sunday preview of that show. Let's go a little bit further down. Geeks of Muckleby says, glad to hear Max is looking to commit after this initial contact. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, he has committed to scholarship terms, and it seems that professional terms aren't going to be too far after that until his 17th birthday, when he can sign those professional terms. Alfred says, Tom, I'm at the game on Wednesday. Fancy taking my seat, and I'll indulge in all the press box luxuries. I'll even write an article for you. Oh, I'm such a control freak, Alfie. I don't think I could do that. I'm sorry, sir. I just couldn't do it. Baz says apparently Endrick is available on loan in January, so he can make the World Cup squad. In the past, I think it would be a loan deal that we'd be interested in. But now, in my opinion, no, I don't think we need Endrick. I don't think we need, unless we have an injury crisis up top. I don't think there is any needs at this point in time. Connor says, do you think we'll see Max get some minutes against Palace? It's been a while since he got some time with the first team. When was his last appearance? Was it Port Vale? Port Vale might have been his last appearance. Trying to think in any other game where he has come on. I think it was Port Vale, but again, there's not like a rush. It's going to be a gradual thing, and him playing youth games, under 21 games, is really important for him as well. So I don't think that's too bad. George says, do you think the analysis side of the game is something teams in Europe don't take as seriously as Premier League teams? It seems most English clubs, Spurs aside, score more goals in Europe. I just think Premier League clubs are just a lot better because they've had a lot more money, a lot more resources. Premier League clubs are always at an advantage over European clubs because they have had more money. Only the likes of Bayern, Real Madrid, Barcelona really have got sort of comparable resources to the Premier League clubs. So I just think it's a case of resource and depth of quality more than anything else. But you could argue that they have more investment, therefore, in coaches and analysts and things like that too. But the biggest reason is the resources available to Premier League clubs as opposed to others. OJ says, hi, Tom. Do you think Gabriel Jesus has a role still to play in this team this season? I would keep him if he brings something new. He is different. I love the show from East London, South Africa. I think that there's a chance he could leave in January. I know that there are clubs interested in him from Europe. There are clubs interested in Brazil, but I don't think he wants to go back just yet. He's still, mid to late 20s, so he's still of a good age, and I think he's still got more to give. But I don't think there's anything wrong in keeping Jesus till the end of the season. I think he would add something, give us something different, add depth, as you point out. So, yeah, I think I would keep him to the end of the season and then sell him in the summer. Geeks of Muckleby says, hi, Tom. Will Jesus still be an Arsenal player after January? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. No idea. Sorry. No idea. Adney says, if Gabriel Jesus comes back fit, should we use him as a left winger or as a striker? I think, yes, we should use him. Absolutely, we should use him. But I think his future is somewhat going to be already decided. Aussie Gunnar says, hey, Tom, who's your favourite in-betweeners character? Neil, all day long. Martin says, Arthur Gibson, but Liverpool have developed Anfield. We were restricted, had hybrid because the main stand is a listed building. Yeah, exactly. There's differences. We couldn't have done what Liverpool have done. It's just, there's reasons as to why. Erdog says, I finally got to put a message in the chat. It's Brooke, but I'll be listening on catch-up. See you, mate. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you for listening, and thank you for listening on catch-up as well. Jack says, love the 92-94 home shirt. One of my favourites. Buzzing they've re-released it. Would love the away shirt from that season as well. A lot of the away shirts from the 90s have been glorious kits. So, yeah, I do tend to agree with you. Shay says, are facing Palace at the best or worst time. They haven't won in a while, which could be an advantage, but to the detriment of Palace, they want to prove a point by beating us. I'd rather play them in this state than be on kind of a very good run with a lot of rest available to them. Tom says, do you think that our biggest downfall is reliance on set pieces? It's not a reliance on set pieces, Tom. Our set piece goals have become something of a plan B for us. We are in games having to break teams down, and at times when they are sitting in low blocks, sitting very deep, that could be a real challenge. Set pieces are a strength of ours. I don't think we should be worried about that at all. Not at all. It's just our plan B, set pieces, and it's very good plan B for us. John says, who, or rather should we be looking at to replace Trossard within a few years? Do we have any young talent internally? Still think Yildiz is a shout? I think Yildiz is being looked at. I think Semenyo obviously is another one being talked about as an older profile. But internally, not necessarily at the moment. Obviously, Dowman's more of a right side to centre player. So, yeah, tricky one. Aussie Gunnar says, Tom, due to the fact of time zones and usually listening on catch-up, I just want to say I love the content. Always makes my day when I see the Spotify notification saying that you've posted. Well, thanks, mate. It's very kind of you indeed. And thanks for the question and comment. Adney says, it seems that we're interested in Nico Paz. Do you have any thoughts on this? Haven't seen too much of him since his move to Como, but I think he's been doing pretty well. But I don't really have too many thoughts on that. Arsenal's future transfer business is genuinely going to be really interesting because we look pretty complete. So it's about how you find the balance in recruitment moving forwards after you've got such kind of a complete squad. Jack says, Tom, which left winger would you want next summer? Semenyo, Yildiz and Day. Yildiz does kind of interest me. But again, Semenyo, I think, would add immediate quality to the team and wouldn't necessarily shake the boat up too much. So I would be happy with either, to be honest. Either of those two would be very exciting signings for Arsenal. And obviously, Tom, a good mate of mine, Josh, aka True Gooner, is a good YouTube channel with 16k subs. You should reach out and do a show with him. I don't tend to reach out too often because time more than anything else. So I've got, some very close mates in the business that it's easy to kind of just organize when there's kind of like short notice. But yeah, it's more time that I don't have the opportunity to be able to do it. Like if people ask for me to come on shows, it's really difficult. I have to book like 2 months in advance, something like that, because it's just so hard to squeeze in. I have 2 press conferences a week, two games a week most weeks. Every day I do a show at 8 a.m. So it's really hard. And I have to have some time for family as well, and to have a life beyond Arsenal, which I always try and switch off. So it's really difficult to do that. Anne says, hi, Tom, loving your work. I'm racking my brain trying to think what could have been the plan that Arteta laid out for Dowman and his family that blew them away. Any ideas? I imagine it's very simple when you've got a team sitting top of the Premier League right now, and you can kind of see the talent of a player and that pathway into the Arsenal first team, and how he's going to be used and how he's going to be managed and how they're not going to waste his talent, and the potential to play for one of the world's best that you've also grown up with all your life. That must be an exciting prospect in itself. So I don't think it needs to be too deep, to be honest, beyond that. Raj says, who's the nicest member of the current team that you've ever interacted with? Who's the nicest? Martin is very polite, very professional. Like it's almost become a tradition at the end of seasons. He won't go to do an interview, but he'll come into the mix zone and shake everybody's hands and thank them for their coverage over the course of the season. So Martin obviously is very polite and professional. Mikel Marino is also very polite, very good to speak to. Great English as well. He speaks very good English. I've already told many people the story of his first interview I did with him, which was quite funny. And yeah, I'm trying to think of anyone else. I need to remind myself now of the squad, because if I look at faces, it will definitely give me a spark of who's. Jurriën Timber's quite good when you can get him to do an interview. Miles is good. Miles was entertaining in his first. I've only done one interview with Miles, but it was good. Declan, I haven't done too many interviews with Declan, just one. But again, he's very good to chat to. Again, I haven't spoken to Ebbs yet. Very much would like to interview Ebbs, but I'm not doing the mix zone as much these days because obviously I'm at the press conferences. So I used to do the mix zone every week, but now in the lead role, I do the pressers. So not as able to speak to the players, but yeah, I mean, I spoke to Victor early on in the season, and I guess very polite, very professional, very straight down the line, gives you straight answers, which is always appreciated. So I haven't got a bad word, really. The only ones I know that aren't the biggest fans of me, like I know Leo doesn't particularly like doing interviews, but when he does them, he's very professional. And yeah, Ben White, obviously, I know doesn't particularly like doing interviews, but again, when he does them, very professional. Players don't always like doing. I mean, I imagine most players don't really like doing media, but I've never ever had a situation where any player's kind of been snappy or rude, or it's clear they don't want to be there. They're always very generous when they do engage in an interview. So yeah, it's who does the mix? Well, it depends, because sometimes we don't have people there because that we've gone for a big restructure at the company. Obviously, I do a lot more work with Ryan Taylor now. So if I'm at a game with Ryan Taylor, he would be doing the mix zone while I'm in the press conference. But our Spurs writer, Ellie Gold, is away at the moment. So Ryan's doing a lot of Spurs. I do a lot of games with John Cross, of course. So on the Atletico Madrid night, John went and did the mix zone, and I did the press conference. So it very much depends upon the roles of what's going on. Like John is obviously our chief writer at the Mirror. So he would do what he wants. It's John Cross. But but obviously it makes sense because I do the transcript for the press conference to do the press conference. So he happily volunteered to go and do the mixer. So yeah, as I'm always happy to talk about this type of thing. I don't mind giving you a little bit of a glimpse behind the curtain. It's I know that not many people get to know what goes on kind of from that side of things. That's why I do the match day vlog. If you've not watched my match day vlogs, I always do. I give a little bit of a glimpse behind the scenes of what it's like being a journalist covering Arsenal. You can follow me on Instagram at Tom Canton Media. It's on your screen, and you can go watch any of my blogs or vlogs rather from the games. Jack says would be happy with either of Semenyo or Yildiz. To be honest, what a great position we are in now as we can pick up the best talent available. Morgana says, Tom, did you see the Gabrielle interview when she kept on speaking Portuguese, even though he was answering in English? Oh, Alex is brilliant. If you've seen her interviews in Spanish, she did one with Diego Simeone. And if you've not watched that interview, please go and watch it because it is. I always retweet them whenever they come up on my screen because Alex is just excellent at what she does. It's a real inspiration. I mean, I can't learn languages. I really struggle with it. It's I don't know why I struggle with it. I haven't got the best memory in the world for starters. Struggle enough with English at times. But I'd love to be able to speak other languages, and it's something I really find quite endearing is the ability to speak multiple languages. And Alex can just do it like this. It's just like flicking from one to another, and it's very, very impressive. Very, very, very impressive. Ozzy says, sorry, I've been asking a lot of questions, but how do you get into the journalism side of things? I want to eventually move back to England, where I'm originally from, and get a similar job in League Two. It's perseverance. It's a lot of asking. It's obviously sometimes knowing people. I mean, from a personal perspective, I got into it not because I knew anybody, which is more of a rarity these days, because, as they say, it's more about who you know rather than what you know. And for journalism, it can often be like that. But, I mean, I broke away from teaching to go into journalism, as most listeners know by now, by literally emailing hundreds of websites. I built up work like a portfolio. I'd done YouTube already, and I'd written for free for a lot of websites to build up like a portfolio of work, just volunteering to write articles, and eventually built up enough of kind of a CV that when I was applying for certain websites that someone turned around eventually and gave me a job. But I had to quit teaching. I went down to minimum wage, 6 days a week of 7, working for 101 Great Goals. And, that was a big change. And I was in a privileged position because, my wife's got a good job. So I was able to do that, but not many other people would necessarily have the capacity to be able to do that, which I always don't take for granted. So, and then obviously just again, after like 8-9 months with them, a job came up at FL that I applied for and got, and the rest is history. So yeah, it's like, it's just a lot of commitment, a lot of graft, putting in work outside. I was teaching and marking and planning lessons and then writing articles on the side, doing YouTube shows. It was, my early 20s were a very, very, very busy period. It's busy now in different ways, but I don't even know how to bit of I think I even had like a social life for a couple of years while I was just constantly building up content all the time to be able to build a CV to hopefully make a jump one day that someone might take a pot shot on me, and thankfully it did. And as I say, the rest is history. Adney says, who would be a better choice for the Crystal Palace game, Calafiori or Miles Lewis-Skelly? Personally, I would choose Calafiori. I think Calafiori absolutely still should start this game. There's no doubt about that. Yes, Ainsley, just being able to write a good article. But I mean, loads of people can write good articles. Now, there are loads of fantastic writers out there that aren't getting opportunities because journalism is incredibly, I always say to people, it's an incredibly unstable and competitive field. It's so hard to get your foot in the door, first of all. And even when you get your foot in the door, you might think you've landed like a dream job, and then all of a sudden you've lost it because redundancies are so common. I've been with my company since 2021, and I've been through 4 rounds of job losses, and very, very thankfully have made it through them. But I've lost very good friends who weren't as fortunate, who are amazing writers. So it's a very, very difficult. It's a very unstable career choice. And you just kind of got to keep your fingers crossed every day that you're not going to wake up to an email asking you to go into a meeting to let you know that there's another round of redundancies coming. And you kind of just have to block that side of the job out and just keep soldiering on and putting in your best work and showing your best ability. So it's really hard. Amroga says, Tom, are there journalists using AI to write stories? Probably. I mean, it's an amazing tool, isn't it? AI is an amazing tool. I personally have never used AI to write an article, mainly because I want my words to be my words, if that makes sense. Like, I've used AI for like advice. I think most people would these days. Like, it might be, do you like give me suggestions for XYZ? It might be, I need to know how many days it has been since this date. It might be how long it has been since this player scored. Just like things that you can then, and you have to always, if you're ever using AI, double, triple check the information. But it's always, for me, a really good starting point for like research, because it can answer a question quickly for you, and then you can kind of build your research from there. But I don't think you should ever shackle AI to kind of the bulk of anything that you do until it gets to a certain level, because there's always the potential for it to have mistakes, and you should always double, triple, even quadruple source it and check it. So it's yeah, I think that's probably right from Doug says, use it as a tool. It's not the answer. And I've never ever published an article that was written by AI, ever. So it's just not, that's just not something I have done so far. That was written in that sense. There are obviously some tools which like will take an article and repub it to like a elsewhere, but I've not done that yet. So, but yeah, it's a tool. It's not the answer. I like that phrase. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. I always think, like, imagine if I was still a teacher. Like, it must be a nightmare for teachers, AI, because surely students are just, all homework must be written by AI. They might, maybe they've changed it these days where all homework needs to be handwritten. I mean, still they could copy it, I guess, but like, and how did that coursework? How do they know if AI has been used? Because you can ask AI to write things in a way in which it would be difficult to detect that AI has written it. So I imagine being a teacher these days, with students, of course, of a cognitive level, to be able to use AI. I mean, probably. I mean, the young AI can be used at any age, really, can't it? Even in primary school, potentially. So it's scary, very, very scary. Amroga says, Tom, as an ex-teacher, if you look calculators AI smartphones away, how many would then fail exams? Well, yeah. I mean, it is mad, isn't it? It's just, education in general has changed so greatly. Aim says, ask AI how to get into journalism. Yeah. Again, it's a tool. It's never the answer, really. It's for the moment, and it's going to keep getting better. And it's scary, It's scary the level of fraud that can be utilized. There's going to have to be new laws introduced around AI, if not already. But it's an amazing thing, but it's a scary thing. Very scary. And Tom says, I'm a teacher. It's really obvious when it's written. If it's suspicious, you just run it through AI checkers and it detects AI. But also, is there like an arguable situation where someone's writing can be so good that it almost feels like it is AI these days, and then they get retrospectively punished when they've actually written a really good piece that just sounds a bit like AI? It's very, very difficult. Matt says, hi from Chicago. Do you envision any internal issues over player usage with how big of a squad we have? I mean, it's a challenge, isn't it? So it's impossible not to have a little concern about some players maybe not getting enough minutes over the course of a season, but you've just got to put your faith in them that they're going to be able to use them. Jay says, do I watch Traitors? Of course I do, but I know that people try and catch up, so please don't leave spoilers in the chat box, because some people may not have seen the episodes yet. So do not spoil Traitors for anyone. But I feel like you give it at least a couple of days until you talk about spoilers in an open chat box. You have to give it at least till Saturday evening before you're giving people a chance to catch up, for sure. Shay says, when I was in university, AI was used all the time, despite the AI detectors, and some people who didn't use AI were accused. It was crazy. There you go. That's exactly what I was just talking about. DJ says, some AI DJ sets are fantastic, not just the tracks, but the set list order, and also can really, yeah, I think, again, it's a great tool. Like, it can really help. It can help in that sense, kind of like ordering tracks, seeing what tracks are going to mix better, because it can analyze the BPM and all the different aspects of the track so that you can mix them together, and what tracks will mix really well. At what points in the song should you mix them? You know, that I think is very, very good. It's a very good tool. But then again, some people say that, is it taking away talent? Is AI now smothering talent of people? Because you can argue it two ways. You can either say it's smothering talent because it's giving people who don't have that natural ability the spotlight as much, because they can get the help that they need to get to a certain level faster, that they can then flourish themselves. Or equally, you could argue that it gives more of an opportunity to people who wouldn't necessarily have the natural born talent in some areas to be able, therefore, to enter a field that they would have had no open door to before that. So again, as with anything, there's two sides to the coin. Jay says, who in the Arsenal squad would be a good traitor? Yeah, see, that it's a loaded question, that, isn't it? Because traitors need to be good at lying and deceiving. I guess you could put it in a different way, where deception of how good they can feint a ball and sell a dummy could be an argument. But I don't really want to answer that question, because I don't think anyone in the Arsenal squad would be a good traitor. But you all know that Robin van Persie and Samir Nasri would have been good traitors back in the day. I think we all know that. Kazang says, why Arsenal had triangle corner flags versus Atletico. I heard the FA Cup winners uses triangle flags the following season. I don't know. My question would be, politely, why do you care? I don't really care about the shape of corner flags, but if that's your jam, that's your jam. So fair enough. And you spelled Atletico wrong, so I'm almost inclined to say I don't care about corner flags. And he says, one of our coursework was revised and the professor made all the assignments to be done in class in front of him. Wow, I don't blame him. Who can blame him? You know, who could blame him? Because AI is such a difficult one in the education sector. Ronzo Cow says, only 600 people signed a document stating that super intelligent AI is incredibly dangerous. Only 600 people. Or 600 in the world, or in like a group? I don't know. There's over 900 of you tuning in, by the way, right now. It's more than 300 of you more than the people that signed that petition. If you would drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, I would be truly grateful for you to do so. No one's still, by the way, pointing out why today's a big day in the gaming industry. Wonder if anyone will be able to give me that answer before the show ends in a few minutes' time. Why is today a massive day for the gaming industry and for one of the biggest titles ever to grace the gaming industry? And no one's come up with the answer yet. Maybe Arsblog would know if he was on with me. We're both big gaming fans, so maybe. It's nothing to do with FIFA. No new FIFA. It's nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with football. Nothing to do with Football Manager. Football Manager came out yesterday. It's not a football-related thing. Does the G stand for Grok now in TGT? Bailey says, Arteta look at the things he's done with the pickpocket ideas and stuff like that. Yeah, just things like that, just inspiration. Arteta is always up for kind of like the little tiny marginal gains and try and see where he can get improvements from. Ronnie says, here in Norway, sometimes at the bottom of the news article, it says this was written by AI and double checked by a journalist. Interesting. It's obviously a big time saver for people. It's ability to save money, unfortunately, because it can mean that you don't have to have as many people employed, and it's a really sad state of affairs that is where we're kind of at in so many industries. Matt says, is Don Berta the best thing that's happened to this team in the last 3 years? Maybe. Best thing that's happened to Arsenal. The employment of Andrea Berta has been huge. Absolutely massive. It's not Fallout. I don't think it's Fallout Day, is it? I mean, if it is, that's also massive. It's nothing to do with GTA. No, neither of those two. As far as I'm aware, not Borderlands or Battlefield Claire. No, still not. Wow, it kind of shows you how far this kind of like franchise has fallen off, that people don't know how big of a day this is. Dara says, do you prefer doing the press conference or being in the mix zone? I love both, Dara, to be honest. It's a privilege to do both. So I do enjoy doing both. The only downside of the mix zone is that you can sometimes end up standing there for a very, 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 very long time, like well over an hour, and still not get anyone. They're not contractually obliged to provide somebody to interview in the mix zone. You sometimes have to rely on someone being brought out for an interview or getting lucky by asking one of the players to stop, which they never particularly want to do. So, especially when they don't win. It's very, I mean, the hit rate of getting a player when Arsenal haven't won the game, I reckon is about 10%. And in those 10%, it's normally Martin. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We do have a winner. Shay is absolutely spot on. Today is a massive day for Halo. So if you are a Halo fan today, as I am, absolutely proudly, and I stand on this and have been for pretty much my entire gaming conscious life, today is a huge day for Halo. And there's big reasons as to why. So make sure you go and check out why today is a massive, massive, massive day for Exactly, Claire. I wasn't aware Halo was still a thing. Well, today is a big, big day. So, yes, look, it's not a new one coming out today, but the reveal of what is coming next and also the remake of the very first game we think is potentially going to be shown today. So, yes. Matthew says, Halo, it's not 2007, Tom. Well, that'd be Halo 3, Matt. So you joined the party a little bit late. Halo 2 is the best video game ever made. And there's not too much. Like the best video game ever made was Halo 2. In the context of the time of gaming, what it introduced, you wouldn't have multiplayers in the way that you play online these days. The game like Halo 2, it just created everything, did everything, produced, was the starting point for everything. And it wasn't even a finished game. It was cut off at the end of its dev cycle and they had to lop off the end of the campaign, basically. So, yes. M4 says, didn't they make a Halo show? Yeah, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that rubbish. Anyway, thank you so much, as always, for listening. Really appreciate your time. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. It is Mikel Arteta press conference day. As I say, we'll be talking about that Mikel Arteta press conference a little bit later on tomorrow morning in the morning show. And, yeah, looking forward to that. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. I will just give one final shout out to the event that's going on tonight at the Irish Centre. If you are locally based in London and you've got a free evening tonight, you could be in a room with Nigel Winterburn, Martin Keown, Paul Davis and Perry Groves, listening to some fantastic stories and supporting an amazing campaign, the Kevin Campbell Foundation. Go and get your tickets. They're online. QR code is on the screen, or go to the Kevin Campbell Foundation website to go and get information further about what is going on this evening in Camden Square. So enjoy, people. If you are going, let me know tomorrow how it went, and I hope you have an absolutely fantastic time. And as always, stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, and as always, even more so, up the Arsenal.